Hello everyone, today we are going to be ranking the top 10 chess players of all time. So at number 10, starting right off, we have Viswanathan Anand, also known as Vishy Anand. He is truly one of the greatest players of all time. Now, Vishy has 4 World Championship wins. First he won in an 8-player field tournament in 2007, then he won against Kramnik in 2008, against Topalov in 2010, and then against Gelfand in 2012. He also played in 1995 against Kasparov, where he lost, and then against Magnus in 2013, where he also lost. So in this game, d4, d5, I've showed this game before on the channel, you can check it out in longer form. I'm just going to briefly go over it. Now Vishy played a semi-Slav, and now he took here, and now he got his bishop developed on b7. And here the point is to go for c5 and then have active pieces and to get the initiative. Now knight g5 tries to do something on the king side, which does not work because it's simply not that good, because Vishy can easily defend himself. Here he could either choose h6 or bishop h2, but he can also play c5, which he chooses, which is an insane move because it sacrifices this pawn and this pawn. But in the game, his opponent did something else. His opponent took with a knight on h7, which is a mistake because now knight to g4, and he's kind of copying him, but he's definitely throwing a counter punch here. And now f4 he plays. f4 is again a mistake because he should have just played something like h3, but he probably saw that after bishop h2 and now queen h4, this could get kind of dicey because you can't take here obviously because of checkmate, and maybe wish you would have had an attack, which he would have. He's definitely better here, but f4 he's just almost winning. Now here the best move is c takes d4, which Vishy plays, and now bishop to c5. That is an insane move. Now this is such a crazy move because you're just not even attacking anything, and not even capturing anything. You're just attacking this pawn. Now if you take, then simply knight takes c5, and the point why this is good is you get your knight to c5 with the tempo, and it's something like bishop to e2, now queen d4, and you don't even win, you win the exchange here, and you just have a great position. Like knight f6 check has to be played here, because if the knight tries to get out, now simply queen g2 check mate. So obviously he can't really take on the bishop, so he plays bishop e2, dropping back, kind of anticipating that if he takes, the bishop is hit, so now he's actually threatening to take. But this is still a bad move. He should have played something, he should have just taken, actually, and then played something like knight f8. But yeah, she chooses bishop e2, and now the insane move, knight e5, a brilliant move. Now this is hanging and this is hanging. 2 pieces are currently hanging. If he takes the knight, then simply queen takes d4, and this is checkmate. After queen g1, the beautiful smothered mate here, and the king is stuck with his own rook, and Vishy wins while being down 12 points of material. But he doesn't do this, he takes on g4 with the bishop, and now bishop d4, king h1, and now simply knight g4. And now this bishop is pointing towards the king, this bishop is pointing towards the king, this knight has some squares here, queen is coming in, and this is just almost over for Levon here. He takes on f8, tries to at least get some material, and this is kind of what you do if you're being attacked and slaughtered like this. You should at least try and get some material, because if your opponent fails, then you're just simply going to be better. So Vishy here does not take with the king, but played f5. He's blocking out the queen, so that the queen can never go to h7, and now the queen is ready to come in and give mate. Knight g6, and now queen to f6, a calm move, because obviously queen h4 was not available. So now he has to sacrifice the knight, but just simply takes. And if takes, there's just simply checkmate here, which you probably saw. And he chooses queen e2, but now simply queen h5. This is threatened, and you can't take the knight now. So he chooses queen d3. Rook f3 would have been better, but everything is lost at this point. And now the last move that seals the game here is bishop to e3. Also an insane move. Should have deserved it brilliant because you're sacrificing the bishop, but the point is just you take here on h3, and it is inevitable. You can't do nothing here. Knight d5 has to be played, and then you have to sack the queen, and you're just completely lost here, obviously completely lost here. So next up at number 9, we have Emanuel Lasker. Now Emanuel Lasker is a German chess grandmaster. He used to play very aggressively, and he won the World Championship 6 times, tying for the most in history. He won 2 times against Steinitz in 1849 and 1894, sorry, and 96. He won against Marshall in 1907 and against Tarasch, another German grandmaster, in 1908. And he won against Karl Schlechter in 1910 and against Janowski. So in this game it started with f4, d5, e3, knight f6, b3, e6, bishop e2. And this is the Nimzo-Larsen attack, which is these days played a lot in blitz and rapid games even. But here he plays it in a way with f4, which is quite aggressive. He plays it kind of like a bird. But the problem is with this opening is that most of the times your bishop on c1 is not going to be that good. So if he encatters it, and now he's trying to control e5, maybe put a knight there, and he's probably going to encatter his bishop, that's kind of the point. But he doesn't do that, actually, he puts his bishop on d3. Now this is very, very provocative. You don't even move your d-pawn. You're just saying my bishops are compensating for kind of a lacking real central space here. And so here the best move is c5, but since this is like early 1900s, he chooses b6, plays a bit inaccurate. And here already g4 is winning, but he doesn't do that. He plays knight c3, bishop b7. He just develops in a normal way with now knight to e2. And he was kind of all about opening the bishops. You know, at that time is also the time of Nimzowitsch and people like that. They were all about controlling the center with their pieces. And this was kind of the time where they clashed against the classical era of chess, like Steinitz or Chigorin or something, who played some more traditional setups with like Queen's Gambit or just e4 and, you know, more solid stuff and more sound stuff. And the way you beat these openings is you take a lot of space, which Johann Hermann Bauer definitely did not do here. I mean, he has one pawn in the center, so here Lasker can just use his pawns to his advantage. And now knight e5, this is kind of the point of the opening, and knight takes, bishop takes, and now queen c6. And here he's a bit better, and after he plays queen e2, and now a6, and knight h5. And here he is already attacking, and he takes even. And now instead of taking back with the queen, he plays bishop h7 check, a brilliant move. And now after queen h5, king g8, there's simply bishop g7, with the point that if you don't take, queen g4 is just simply going to be mating. So he has to take. And now simply queen g4, king h7, rook f3, and this is over. He tries e5, but rook h3, queen h6, and he just loses the queen. And queen d7, he even picks up the bishop, and this is just smooth sailing from this point on. He converts easily, and here he even checkmates his opponent, wins the rook. And now, after this queen sack here, this is just a completely winning king and pawn endgame. And yeah, let's just move on to number 8, which is Vladimir Kramnik. Now, Vladimir Kramnik is a bit different of a player than Lasker. Actually, not a bit different, completely different. Kramnik used to play a bit more positionally. He didn't used to go on crazy kingside attacks like we just saw with Lasker here. But he always played some sort of Queen's Gambit, and he was a master at the Catalan, really. He always played the Catalan in different move orders. His favorite was knight f3, which he also plays in this game against Alexander Morozovich. And this right here is really a Catalan masterclass. You're going to see this. So he won 3 times in the World Championship. He won against Kasparov in 2000, against Peter Leko in 2004, against Topalov in 2006 in the infamous Toilet Gate match. So yeah, but the game starts with knight f3, knight f6, and this now becomes a Catalan, a main line. Morozovich chooses to open, and the point here is that he wants to hang on to this pawn by just using every single pawn here, and Vladimir is going to compensate by using his bishop here to go on a light squared attack with his knight and his queen. And the point is just he wants to undermine the structure here and eventually win back the pawn and get into a better position. Knight c3, and this is kind of a main line chosen by Morozovich, queen c2, and now he trades here, and now b3. Here actually Vladimir is a bit worse, but it's really doesn't matter because he has very, very active pieces. His knight on e5 is very, very good. His queen could become active. This bishop is an absolute beast, so he's definitely compensating here. And Morozovich has to play very, very accurately to hold on. Like c6 is the best move, and now he strikes with e4. So as you can see, he's really only playing on light squares. He probably wants to play a4 at some point,
and he just wants to break it all open. So f6 attacks the knight, and here this is kind of, he probably prepped this in this game. He took on d5. So as you can see, this was a rapid game, 6 minute 30 time control. I don't know what kind of time control is this, but this was a rapid game, and this is clear in his prep. He clearly did not figure all of this out. And the point of this is just he's getting only one pawn actually for the piece. Actually, no, it's two. But after bishop e6 is actually a blunder. He would play like queen d6, but here he tries to do something with his pawn, but c7. And this is now crazy because the rook is hit, the knight is hit, the queen is hit, and his queen is hit. And here he has to make a decision. He chooses queen d4, which is a bad move because of queen a4. He is now pinning this pawn to the rook. The rook is hanging, the knight is still hanging, and this is just almost lost here. Knight d7, and now bishop e3, queen d6, and now he simply takes here and plays bishop f4. Bishop f4 was actually a bit wrong. So now moving on to Mikhail Botvinnik, who is at number 7 on my list. He won 5 world championships. He won once in like a 5-player tournament thing in 1948. He won against Bronstein in 51, against Smyslov in 54 and 58, and against Tal in 1961. And Botvinnik was really a positional player. You might know there's an English system that he created where you play c4, e4, and you build like this. And this is called the Botvinnik system. But he also played a lot of d4, like in this game. And he was a very positional player. He used to play like Queen's Gambit, English, as I said, and where he just played kind of solidly and kind of squeezed his opponent in the endgame. You know, as you might know, Botvinnik was a Russian player, a Soviet player, and they were just all bulletproof at endgame. So he just got a slight advantage and just squeezed it out of his opponent. So yeah, he played against Capablanca in this game. This was, I think, after Capablanca became world champion, so this was way after. And c4, e6, and this is now an Indian defense, and he chooses e3. The point of e3 is you want to catch up in development, and then eventually push for e4 and get some active pieces. d5, a3, gets the bishop here, bishop d3, and this is the position we get. He wants to trade off this bishop, since this is White's only active piece right now, really, because his bishop is kind of bad. So he takes, which is a fine move. Now it's just dead equal, and he chooses bishop b2. And the point here is he wants to play c4 and activate his pieces, because right now Capablanca is actually better after something like c4, which is just, I mean, this bishop is now kind of bad. This knight isn't particularly good. The only downside to this is that this pawn can be kind of weak, but it's fine. Like, he has to play like knight g3 and push for e4, but Capablanca is going to defend himself. But he did not do that. He played queen d7. With that point, just wants to connect his rook and maybe do something with his queen here. And this was kind of the clash of the two positional players, Capablanca and Mikhail Botvinnik. Capablanca in his prime maybe a bit better than Botvinnik, but Capablanca, like a model player, and he's featured in like 99% of chess books ever, which is quite funny. So yeah, rook e8, and this is just, now he chooses c4, and this is kind of now dead equal actually. I mean, what is a bit better? Black was subsequently a bit better, but now he builds with f3, and here actually Capablanca kind of gives the advantage away, because after e5, knight d7, and the relocation, now actually Botvinnik is creating kind of an attack, and f5, and he's actually like breaking through. Rook e6 is a beautiful move. Point is, if you take, I now have a passed pawn, and this knight is hanging, so you have to defend yourself. You get this position. Sorry, it did actually happen. Queen e8. He tries defending himself. Queen e5, queen e7, and now the first brilliant move, bishop a3, deflecting the queen away. Point is, if takes, knight h5 check, gf5, queen g5, and you win the knight, and this pawn is just going. King j8 has to be played, and now simply queen f7, and even g3 here is winning. Or h3, just creating a luft for the king. But you have to, and this actually happens in the game, like this, but he chooses e7 instead of giving the last check, and now he just runs out with his king all the way to h5, And here he goes king h4 back just after the check, and he blocks the check and just cool, calm, and collected moves up his king, and he's just getting Capablanca is just getting mated, and here he actually resigned. So this was a beautiful game with 2 brilliant moves, and actually a nice attacking game, which you didn't see that much from Botvinnik in his prime. So moving on, now at number 6 we have Mikhail Tal, the person with the least world championship wins here, tied with Fischer, because he only won once against Botvinnik. This is actually a game from the world champion. No, it's not. It's just a game they played. But it's he played against Botvinnik in 1960, where he won the world championship, and this is another game against Botvinnik where he played the leg pieces and he played the King's Indian defense like this. He played 97, e5, c6, and this is going to become a really crazy attacking game. He trades here, and here he's just improving his pieces. Botvinnik is a bit better here, which is normal with the King's Indian these days with the engines, but it doesn't mean anything. Definitely Tal has some winning chances, and now he just attacks the weaknesses here in the center, and now he strikes. Now he kind of goes for the attack, and his pieces are working together beautifully. Rook a1 and knight f4. Knight f4 looks like a brilliant move, which it isn't really. It's very dubious. The point is just probably what Tal calculated is bishop d2, and now he has bishop to e5. This is threatened if the king tries to step away. Now simply queen b2, and Tal is winning. He probably solved this. I'm fairly certain he did. But what he actually has here is a3, putting a tempo on the queen. And after something like queen b3, there's simply bishop a7. And after bishop a5, now f3, and everything is blocked, and Botvinnik is holding here, and Tal has to be okay with the worst position. And this actually kind of happens like this in the game, but he did choose bishop d2 in the game, and now queen b2. And even here, like Botvinnik just beautifully defends. Rook a b1 is a beautiful defensive resource, because here he could either take or he plays f3. Now f3 is losing. Like the engine is really not that nice to Tal. But the point of f3 is he's trying to take here anyways, but I mean, honestly, I don't get f3 really. He's trying to open up the bishop, I guess, but he could have just taken here on b1, and he would have been still way worse, but fine. So f3, and now rook b2 he plays, which is a mistake because of fe2, and now simply this pawn is too strong, and here he just gets slaughtered. And we can just fast forward of this game. Tal is just winning a lot of material here, and it's just a winning game. I don't know, here again you can see kind of the Soviet style, so bulletproof and just so great at endgames. Really remarkable here. Really remarkable conversion here by Tal. And yeah, this is kind of the style Tal had. You know, he was really attacking, but it's sometimes kind of dubious.
So moving on, next up at number 5 we have Jose Raul Capablanca.
He won only once against Emanuel Lasker in 1921, and then after that he didn't make much noise in the chess world. But anyways, the game started with e4, e5, knight f3. Jose Raul Capablanca played Frank Marshall here, and this is just a mainline Spanish. I don't need to bore you with variations. And g4. This is very, very aggressive here by Capablanca, but he was all about positional chess and having great pieces. And h5 tries to chip at the structure, but simply h3 he reinforces everything. And here just has a nice position. Marshall tries to break out with d5, but to no avail. Queen e2, he just guards everything. And now he's actually like kind of starting an attack low-key. Like queen e3, f6, and this knight is just living here forever. You can't really take, because then you're just suffocating him as white. And now he kind of goes for this attack actually. He goes rook h4, gives his other rook into the game, and he has just so much space. He's winning. Bishop takes, queen check, and now he wins the material. And he's just completely winning here. He broke through with the attack, and just a beautiful move. Bishop f8, such a nice move. Queen h7 has to be played. Rook h7. He just simply wins the rook, and this is just a piece up, and very much convertible. And here you can definitely see some of the positional brilliance by Capablanca. He just basically, like, he lashed out with g4, but then he went back to playing completely positional chess. He relocated these pieces, and then he kind of saw like he has so many potential attackers on the king's side here. Even this bishop is kind of pointing to the king's side, that he just decided he was going to go on the king's side attack, because he just has enough time for that, because his opponent is actually kind of paralyzed. Even a nice sacrifice here. And then bishop f8, a nice move for the win. So next up with Anatoly Karpov, he won 3 times. And he actually has been in the World Championship the most times. He played like 4 times against Kasparov or something. But yeah, he was an amazing player, very positional, very kind of suffocating his opponents, and just playing overall very positionally. So d4, knight f6, c4, c5. Knight f3, this is the anti-Benoni. Knight takes, and he kind of goes into this like English opening ready structure. And here, a very nice positional move. Because in these structures, the Lasker bishop can be kind of awkward, because it's not that good. It can get easily trapped. So he just gives it up for insane central control and some open lines here. And this bishop is a beast, and these rooks are going to dominate his position. Bishop d7, and he connects his rooks. And now he goes actually on a kingside attack. h5, a great move. Point is that if you do this, f5, if you take again and get greedy, now simply bishop c6, and if you take, now simply rook e7, and you're just winning here. But obviously he did not take, he played b5 instead, which is also a bad move, because now, actually knight c5 would have been better, but he just takes, which is also winning, and now he chooses knight c5. And here this is winning. Topalov already has to like defend himself, but look at this. I mean, Karpov's pieces are like actually good, and Topalov just has like 22 points of material just standing here in this 3x3. Actually, 23 points of material just standing in this 3x3. Well, Karpov's pieces are just very harmonic here. They're sharing open lines and just standing very well. Rook e6, by the way, a crazy sack, because after takes, king g7, and now simply bishop c6. You just get the 2 pieces for the rook, and the king is super weak. Knight is coming in, mate is following. So he did not take, but instead he played rook to a7. And now simply rook to g6, another sacrifice. And now queen e6 check, and he just picks up the knight. And now he takes, and there's a mating attack coming here somewhere. He just has to find, and another rook sacrifice. 3 rooks sacrificed in one game. He takes, and this is just mate coming soon. He gives a few checks, and now after the beautiful move, bishop e8, and now just he picks up a pawn, he picks up a rook, and here, even though he's done an exchange, he's completely winning, because he has 6 pawns for the exchange, which is obviously winning. He's just going to push his pawns and win the game. And now next up, we get into the top 3, starting with Robert James Fischer, also known as Bobby Fischer, on at 3. He chooses the ready here against Donald Bjorn. Actually, wait, sorry. Bobby Fischer was black. He chooses the King's Indian defense, and this now turns into a main line, and kind of like a Grunfeld defense here. He plays c6, and the point here is he wants to kind of snipe at the center with c5. Here actually he's completely winning after knight e4, simply. And after bishop e7, he just has queen b6. And this is just the first sacrifice of many. He sacrifices his rook, but he doesn't budge. Knight c3, sacking the knight, but not really sacking the knight because of queen c3. This is just simple. Rook a, e8, and he's just winning the bishop here. So he doesn't do that. He drops back with the bishop. And now he starts his attack with rook f to e8 check. And this attack is really, really cool because he doesn't even use a crazy pawn storm. You know, in the last few examples of games, we've seen they kind of break open the structure with their flank pawns, but he does not do that. He strictly attacks with pieces. King f1 has to be played. And now he plays an insane move. He just completely gives his queen up. Bishop e6, if takes, which is what happens in the game. Bishop c4, check, and now we see the nice windmill tactic. He picks up a pawn, he picks up the bishop, and he picks up the rook. And he is just like, he just has a rook and 2 pieces for the queen. And now at this point it's just cleanup time, clean up on r7, and this is just a simple win for the world champion. And here he delivers a beautiful mate in 5 with these pieces here. Just beautiful. While the queen is on b8, he has 14 points of material, absolutely smothering the king here. And this just is such a cool cool game by Fischer. His opponent made an opening blunder, didn't castle soon enough, and then he just smelled the blood in the water and absolutely cooked him. This is actually known as the game of the century, as many of you know. This was considered the greatest game ever played up to a certain point. And yeah, this is just it's such a great example of the genius of Bobby Fischer. And the craziest thing is, before playing Bishop E6, like, you have to see Bishop B6, Bishop B4, King G2, Knight C3, Knight D2, King F1, Knight D4, King G1, Knight D2. You have to see this entire sequence, and you have to evaluate here that you're better. So now, at number 2, we have Garry Kasparov. That's right, I put Magnus at 1. This game he played against Veselin Topalov. Kasparov had won 6 times in World Championships, 4 times against Karpov in 85, 86, 87, and 90. He won against Short in 93 and against Anand in 95. And this game against Topalov, it started with a Pierce defense, and he played the 150 attack with Queen D2. Basically, the point is you just want to go for a kingside attack. But Topalov kind of chooses this anti-150 attack scheme by putting the bishop here, 97, and castling queenside. And usually, even though it doesn't look like it, the king is actually completely safe here. But as you will see, this game is going to get out of hand really quickly. Now, Kasparov already has all of his pieces here coming to the queen side. His queen is going to be there in just a moment, like this. And now, in a few moments, we will see the first rook sacrifice here. Rook e7, an insanely cool move. Rook e7, point is, if takes, just simply queen d4 is going to be made in a few moves. Now, if you want a more in-depth analysis, you should watch Gotham Chess's video after watching this video to the end and liking and subscribing. He has a great in-depth analysis on this. So rook e7, he does not take, he plays queen b6. And now an insane king hunt is going to be happening. Queen d4, he sacks a knight, and now b4. Queen c3, and now rook a7. He has to kind of defend himself, but rook takes b7. If the queen would have taken, then just simply checkmate on b3. And this is kind of the point, the queen is overloaded. His rook and his knight here are just simply not participating. So even though he's down a rook and a knight, he has a queen and a rook, and these pieces are just the only pieces defending. And after this, like, it's just a queen and a rook for a queen at this point in the game. But this is still equal. Topalov could not easily, what am I talking about? The engine could easily hold this after queen c4, which he actually plays. I mean, props to Topalov. Topalov, he actually defended this really, really well. Like, this is equal. The engine would easily hold this, but obviously no human is going to get this. Queen a6, king b4, c3. Topalov is better after king c3. And this is crazy. Queen a1, and now queen b2. Bishop f1, an insane move. Actually, the engine first said after bishop f1, it first said Topalov was a bit better, but after thinking for like a few seconds, now it thinks that it's completely winning because, not because of this, I am stupid, because of queen c2, not letting the king escape, and now simply checkmate ensuing, so you can't take, but it said rook d2, but just simply rook to d7, an insane move. Rook has to take, you win the queen and you win the rook, and this is just, now he just has to clean up. And here Topalov resigns because this is not enough. This pawn is not going to be enough, and he's just maybe even getting mated. So yeah, now, as you all might could have guessed, at number 1, we have Magnus Carlsen. He won 5 World Championships, 2 against Anand, against Karyakin, against Caruana, against Nepomniachtchi, and famously he's now not playing in the World Championship events no more. And this is a game from 2016 in the World Championship in the rapid tiebreaks where he played against Karyakin. e4, c5. And this game started in a normal knight-off way, but it quickly goes away from that, and we kind of get this Maroczy bind structure. Now remember, this is a rapid game. I think it's 25-0 time control. I'm not sure. But Magnus kind of gets this passive-looking position, and he has to play this for a win. This could be match deciding. If he draws this, it's fine. He still has chances, but this is a very important game. If he wins this, the match is over. And he has won. So he obviously plays very imbalanced and aggressively. He repeats moves here twice, but obviously Karyakin can't take the move repetition. because if he loses, if he makes a draw, the game is over, the series is over, so he has to win. But simply there's no winning chances, and Magnus is just simply better. He repeats, kind of calling Karyakin's bluff here because he has to go back. And this is just winning for Magnus because there's nothing you can do. And now after rook here, it's mate in 7. But after king h7, now comes the brilliancy. Queen to h6, an incredible move. If king takes, this is mate. And if pawn takes, this is mate. So basically, this was an insane game. In the highest stakes event of the entire year, with the world championship on the line, he chooses a weird Sicilian variation. Plays kind of passively at the beginning, but then just he improves his pieces just normally. He plays kind of positionally. He creates some pawn weaknesses, forces Karyakin to take a passive position, and then he just infiltrates and gets the sack, gets the tactic to fall. And here, Karyakin even resigned because it's hopeless. You're just getting mated. So yeah, that was my list. I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you have anything you'd like to say about the list, just comment and say what you would have done differently and what you think about these games. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time.